And on to the next one. And then, of course, I mean, it's great to talk in an exhibition about prohibition in the United States. It's kind of rich in imagery and documents and even objects. And when there was a seizure, there was often a very kind of public and much photographed demonstration of the whiskey or the beer or whatever it was being poured directly into the sewer, like this police photograph here. And then there's a rather lovely little cigar case, apparently a cigar case from the museum in Chicago, which is actually the tip of the cigar hides a glass vial which could have contained some kind of spirit. So you could show your cigar packet, but you could inside it you could conceal your kind of hip flask. Of course, all pervasive police corruption. And the driving underground of alcohol raised a huge number of other problems. But it's also a way to talk about how people in the Drugs and Narcotics Bureau around this time were also kind of beginning to turn their attention to the drugs menace internationally and a kind of growing international market for all kinds of drugs. And on to the next one. Today, I think, again, this is something from Mike's book. He quotes a statistic that the international drugs trade is probably worth something like $350 billion a year, and that puts it kind of in the top 3 largest markets, along with oil and arms. And these are some images from the internet, probably published by the Colombian police, showing seizure of a cocaine baron's mansion, this rather grand mansion, and enormous piles of US dollars and kind of flagrantly displayed gold weapons. And they also had a cage of pumas, which they kept as pets at the back. Finally, obviously very important to talk about addiction, and in many ways, but one, I think, rather engaging way is this a lovely film which we can show, or a series of photographs of an experiment by Canadian Bruce Alexander at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, who conducted experiments with rats and morphine, and keeping cage rats in single cages with access to morphine, and then creating this rather nice, very social environment, and rats being very social creatures, with a kind of nice bed of dust and things for them to do and lots of companions, discovering that the amount of morphine that they voluntarily took kind of dropped off enormously dramatically. So, raising the question about the influence of social circumstances. I'm skating very, very quickly through this, but the exhibition ends with this rather lovely 4-screen film installation by a Turkish artist called Mustafa Halusi, which is called Afyon, and in which you kind of get immersed in these gently swaying poppy fields growing today in Afyon in Turkey. And Afyon was the place where opium was grown in Turkey for the British market, as opposed to the opium that was grown in India and sold to the Chinese market. But then in the 1960s, the US government kind of paid off the Turkish government to destroy all the opium fields in return for vast amounts of money and some investment in infrastructure. But in very recent times, they've been replanting opium and growing it for strictly under very controlled circumstances for strictly medicinal purposes. And then that's really the last thing that you see in the exhibition proper. But we have a kind of, can you go to the next one? Thank you. Then a resource area where people can sit down and have access to lots of books and publications. And also in that resource area, we're commissioning this graphic artist who was formerly a journalist called David McCandless to produce, and this is what he does, is make these rather beautiful graphic imageries images, pie charts, graphs, etc., which will look at statistics and about drug production, about legislation, about finances. That's finances both of financing the drug trade, but also financing law enforcement. Also, perhaps some maps about trafficking routes. So this will form a kind of part of a lot of information that will be available extra at the end. And that's a quick kind of whistle-stop gallop through the exhibition. Thank you.
Open for questions, but one thing I wanted to ask is, have you got Lindsay Shue's letter to Queen Victoria?
No, that would be really nice. Have you seen it? I haven't.
It's a wonderful.
Have you seen it?
Addressed to the barbarian Queen.
Yeah.
His Majesty the Emperor is in a town. Right?
Oh, and he expects that she will forthwith destroy all the opium in the British Kingdom. Yeah.
And the British are addicted to the trade from China, which is only in tea and rhubarb and things they can't get along with one day.
And that was pretty much the last straw, was that letter, wasn't it? As far as, yeah. No, that would.
It must be in the copyright.
We ought to have that, really.
Yeah, I don't know where it is, but yeah, no, I've seen it transcribed, but I've not seen the original. No, it's great. And while it's basically, we've destroyed all the opium in Canton, and while we're at it, I think you better destroy all your opium as well.
Instead of Starbucks, would it be possible to have a Cafe Nero or a Costa Cafe?
Yes.
Starbucks, their commercial practices are quite dodgy. And,
but that would be the point.
That could be interesting.
Oh, I see what you mean. All right, yes.
Perhaps we should have both. Side merge.
Sort of
Is there an ethical
Yeah.
coffee producer that perhaps we can have one Starbucks and one?
Fair trade coffee.
Yeah. Sorry,
what sort of budget do you have to do it? It sounds a wonderful exhibition. I'm going to be there. I'm always slightly reluctant to say because I will say it's. We spend about probably with this exhibition we spend about £40,000 goes on transport. There's a lot of stuff coming internationally, and the transport is very expensive. About £50,000 on building the structure, and about 15,000 on kind of working with designers to help us to build it. Like the light show and.
Yes, we'll pay him a small fee. Other main costs. It's always transport, some fees to artists. But really transport and build and design of the structure that has to hold these things, because obviously a lot has to be behind glass and very carefully displayed, and that's expensive. Those are the main costs.
It's going to be good.
I hope so. Well, I know it's going to be. No, I think it will be very engaging. It's been. I mean, the hardest thing was what not to try to include, really, wasn't it?
And this is for when?
It opens very soon. It opens on the 11th of November. So.
Any more questions? I think that's a suitable high to end on.
Yeah.
And thank you all for staying with us. We started out with a bang, but we've only got an elite crew after this. And we've had some great discussions. I think one of the issues with the conference was there were so many substances that were attracting different people. Some people were attracted to cats and cocoa, and others to water. But I think that those that have been here with us all along have got the main themes of the conference, which were somehow beyond that. And hopefully we'll carry on talking. Apologies from Tilly, who couldn't be here because of illness. And I was going to thank all the funders, but actually, since there are none of them here, I won't bother. just gratitude. Yes. Well, send us any feedback. That would be nice. We can always post it onto the site. Which would be great. And thank you to Shida for all her wonderful work. Thank you for joining me. And, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.